We are by your side every morning. When you go to work, when you go to school, when you strive to create a career. We care about health as much as you do, in Europe and worldwide. And we keep looking for new and better ways to make life easier. We believe in doers like you who keep on going no matter what, who do their best to give their best. We are part of your towns and cities, of the ordinary moments of your life, of your projects and dreams. And we will keep preparing for the future, a planet that is green and sustainable, where products are recycled and reused. We are by your side when the day is over, ready to take you home.
One.
And to the
And
stars.
lift off.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, wonderful good morning to all of you. Welcome back to the second and final day of the EIB Group Forum. Once again, my name is Ali Aslan, and just as yesterday, of course, today, I have the pleasure of serving as your Master of Ceremony as well. For those of you who were with us yesterday, you will remember we had very, very insightful discussions, keynotes, panels here on this very stage. And of course, day two will be no exception, filled with great speakers and great minds who will be addressing the many pressing challenges Europe and the world are facing today. We continue, of course, we encourage you, of course, to continue sharing your thoughts and impressions via LinkedIn or Twitter using the hashtag EIB Forum. To open the second day, I'm honored to share with you a message that a distinguished, esteemed individual who couldn't join us here today, but who did not want to pass up the opportunity to address this audience. It's none other than the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and this is what he wanted to share with you.
Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs les vice-présidents, Mesdames, Messieurs, l'année 2023 marque les 65 ans d'existence de la Banque européenne d'investissement. En cette date anniversaire, force est de constater que l'histoire n'a fait que valider l'existence et l'action de la BEI. Elle est plus indispensable aujourd'hui que jamais pour nous aider à bâtir une Europe souveraine, c'est-à-dire unie et maîtresse de son destin. Projets d'infrastructures de transport, de déplacement urbain, de projets énergétiques, appui aux jeunes entreprises innovantes dans les secteurs des technologies médicales ou de l'intelligence artificielle. Voilà quelques exemples de l'expertise et de la contribution du groupe BEI qui se traduisent en actions très concrètes pour nos entreprises, nos territoires à travers toute l'Union européenne. Nous en avons particulièrement besoin aujourd'hui pour la pleine souveraineté de notre Europe, alors même que notre partenaire américain déploie un plan d'investissement massif. C'est un savoir-faire précieux qu'il nous faut également mobiliser au-delà de l'Union, en Afrique, mais également sur le reste du territoire européen, et je pense tout particulièrement à l'Ukraine. La BEI est notre Banque européenne du climat. Elle est pionnière dans l'alignement de son portefeuille sur l'accord de Paris et elle mobilise 1 000 milliards d'euros en faveur de l'action climat sur la décennie. Face aux défis de la sortie des fossiles, et alors que nous accélérons notre agenda européen de transition climatique et énergétique, nous devons maintenant prendre la mesure des enjeux et faire un constat lucide. Il nous faut nous appuyer pleinement sur l'ensemble des technologies bas carbone à notre disposition, y compris le nucléaire, dans le respect des choix de mix énergétiques nationaux et donc soutenir l'ensemble de ces solutions en conséquence. Cela implique de décarboner, d'innover, de changer nos pratiques et de mettre tout cela à la portée de nos entreprises, y compris les plus petites. La BEI joue ici un rôle majeur pour financer les phases amont de recherche et développement et pour soutenir les phases de production pilote et de commercialisation. Sur l'innovation, nous devons encore davantage accompagner, soutenir le développement des technologies de pointe, mettre en place un écosystème propice à la prise de risque et à l'innovation. Je salue à ce titre la contribution de 500 millions d'euros du groupe BEI à Scale Up Europe, qui aidera à faire émerger des fonds pan-européens afin d'accélérer la croissance des licornes et des champions de la tech européenne. C'est une initiative que nous avons beaucoup poussée sous présidence française et à laquelle la BEI participe ô combien. La BEI doit poursuivre sur cette voie, oser un financement toujours plus élevé du risque pour l'entrepreneuriat et pour l'innovation. La BEI est pleinement au service de la souveraineté économique européenne et elle a de ce fait un rôle majeur et évident à jouer dans la politique industrielle renouvelée que nous sommes en train de mettre en place en européen. Alors que l'impératif de la transition écologique, les prix de l'énergie, les défis de la transition numérique, la perturbation des chaînes de valeur mondiales et les tentations chez certains de nos partenaires de revenir à des pratiques distorsives de concurrence pourraient remettre tout en cause, et que bien évidemment le retour de la guerre sur notre continent est là, c'est à l'inverse un devoir d'une action plus coordonnée, plus ambitieuse qui est le nôtre. Et à ce titre, la BEI joue un rôle central. Elle tient entre ses mains une grande partie des outils dont nous avons besoin pour y répondre. Je sais que la BEI s'est déjà saisie de l'ambition commune que nous avons définie lors du sommet de Versailles en mars 2022 pour l'énergie, le numérique, les semi-conducteurs, la santé, les matières premières, les produits alimentaires et, bien sûr, la défense, sujet sur lequel nous devons maintenant pleinement assumer de faire plus, y compris par l'action de la banque, alors que la guerre est revenue sur notre continent. Le groupe BEI agit et agira encore plus dans les mois qui viennent, j'en suis certain. Il agira davantage pour soutenir la vitalité et l'innovation de notre tissu productif, pour maintenir l'emploi, pour lutter contre la désindustrialisation, pour investir davantage dans les secteurs stratégiques et géostratégiques, notamment l'énergie bas carbone, pour parier davantage sur les innovations de rupture, pour participer à l'effort commun de simplification de toutes nos procédures et de réduction des délais de traitement qui sont aujourd'hui souvent très difficiles pour nos entreprises, mais également pour communiquer davantage comme une équipe européenne pleinement unie afin d'offrir aussi plus de lisibilité à nos entreprises sur le soutien que nous apportons, Union et États membres réunis, à notre activité économique. C'est de cela dont nos entreprises ont besoin. De simplicité, de rapidité, d'ambition, d'investissement et de savoir qu'un grand acteur européen fort de sa puissance financière et de son expertise reconnue est à leur service pour leurs projets de développement. Ce qui fait la force d'une institution, c'est avant tout l'engagement de ses agents. C'est pourquoi mes remerciements vont aux équipes du groupe BEI, de la banque et de sa filiale, le Fonds européen d'investissement. Toutes ces équipes œuvrent au quotidien pour donner vie à des projets d'investissement qui ancrent dans le concret et le réel nos politiques publiques. Je sais pouvoir compter sur votre engagement pour les défis que je viens rapidement de balayer, qui sont nos défis d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Et je veux avoir un mot tout particulier pour votre président, Werner Hoyer. Cher Werner, merci pour ces années à la tête de la BEI, pour ton ambition, pour ta détermination. Et je veux ici te dire la reconnaissance et l'amitié de la France pour toutes ces années et les jalons posés pour l'avenir. Merci à tous.
Thank you to French President Emmanuel Macron for taking the time to share this message with this distinguished audience here on the second day of the EIB Group Forum. And now, to kick off day two, it is my great pleasure to begin the second day by inviting Ms. Teresa Czerwinska, Vice President of the European Investment Bank, to the podium to introduce our first speaker. Ms. Czerwinska, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to the second day of EIB Group Forum. And I'm very convinced that the fruitful discussions of yesterday about unlocking productive investments, speeding up green transitions in very challenging global geopolitical and economic context have duly set the stage for the program of today. And I'm particularly glad that EIB stands today side by side with so many friends, so many partners, and together we face the windstorms of today's and of the future. And indeed, We live in very extraordinary times. Last week marked the first anniversary of the Russian invasion on Ukraine, and in this very sad and difficult situation, we are inspired by the strength of the Ukrainian people. We reflect on terrible costs to Ukrainians in terms of lives lost and the destruction of their homes and infrastructure, as well as on their courage and resilience, which has inspired international admiration. The world has lurched from one crisis to the next in recent years, and now it faces several crises all at once. And we find ourselves in what many call a polycrisis, and you have heard many times this word so far. From climate change to war and energy insecurity, Europe is facing profound challenges. Yet, if every crisis creates an opportunity, and we are faced with so many, then it is the time for poly-opportunity. In such times, our capacity to withstand or recover from such difficulties, our resilience must be our focus. Yet, how can we strengthen our resilience to so many complex challenges all at once? Well, in the face of multiple challenges, collaboration is the key to building resilience. Global challenges require global responses. As a multilateral institution, we know this because cooperation is in our DNA. And I'm proud that EIB Global, as part of Team Europe, is committed to mobilizing 100 billion euros by 2027 through the Global Gateway. And you will hear much more about this initiative in the dedicated session this afternoon. I'm also proud that Europeans have come together to help Ukraine in its hour of need. Millions of Ukrainians have found refuge in the European Union. And the European Investment Bank, the EU Bank, has provided nearly 2 billion euros in support of Ukraine. Our help has been so far consistently delivered to all of key sectors of the Ukrainian economy. Alongside our partners at the European Commission, international financial institutions, and EU member states, we want to step up our support to ensure that Ukraine can recover quickly and continue to develop as a free and democratic nation. As a part of this effort, this month, BAN has been given a green light to commence the process of fundraising for a new trust fund that shall enable the continuation of our engagement in Ukraine, as President Hoyer mentioned yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, our determination to continue supporting Ukraine remains unshaken. But the war in Ukraine has also opened our eyes to the fact that the green transition is also a security imperative. The loss of Russian gas is not the fundamental problem. It is our dependence on it, which we have allowed to build up over decades, that we need to roll back. Decarbonization is indispensable to the climate and environmental crisis, and it's the only way to secure safe, affordable, and secure energy for Europe and the world. In 2019, the EIB was on the right side of history with our energy lending policy. We decided to end financing for unabated fossil fuels projects and to focus our support on projects that are fully aligned with the Paris Agreement. To reduce Europe's dependence of Russian fossil fuels to zero by 2030, we will need to invest close to 300 billion euros in green technologies and the green transition. As the EU Bank, we work closely with our partners in the European Commission and other EU institutions, and we are ready to help Europe weather the current crisis and emerge stronger and more autonomous. We plan to mobilize up to 115 billion euros of new investment under the REPowerEU by 2027. And this investment will help to diversify sources of secure energy, speed up the energy transition, and improve energy efficiency across the European Union. This support comes on top of our significant regular lending operations in the sector. And we are ready to do much more. In speeding up the green transition, innovation will play a key role. Yet the EIB investment report, which will be presented to you today, shows that European firms are still less likely to innovate or adopt new technologies than their US peers. Part of the problem is that when European innovators seek support to roll out promising new technologies, they are often turned to other sources of capital. They either move offshore in search of growth capital or they are bought by global competitors. And to make sure that emerging technologies made in Europe stay in Europe and serve Europe, we need to ensure that promising companies can access European sources of capital to fund their growth. As President Macron said a few minutes ago, we need to establish a European ecosystem that favors risk-taking and innovation. And I'm excited by the fact that the EIB Group, together with France, Germany, Belgium, Spain, and Italy, have launched the European Tech Champions Initiative to support Europe's innovative firms in their later stage development when they need to scale up their business. This is essential for safeguarding the EU's strategic autonomy, resilience, and competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, today we gathered at this forum to discuss how can we adapt to a changing world. And in the face of the multiple challenges, it's very important not to confuse short-term fixes with long-term solutions, or to mistake the cause of our problems with their solutions. And we need to lead the way to embrace the green energy transition and work together with our partners to make our societies inclusive and resilient. I hope you all find today's discussions enlightening and inspiring. And now I would like to pass the floor to Executive Vice President of the European Commission and European Commissioner for Trade, Valdis Dombrovskis. Valdis, the floor is yours.
Honorable Vice President Czerwinska, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address this distinguished audience today. Let me start by congratulating the European Investment Bank on marking its 65th anniversary. Dealing with the events and challenges over the last few years had been an uphill struggle. It feels like we have been in a permanent crisis mode since 2020. Now, in February 2023, we have entered the second year of Russia's brutal war against Ukraine, which has also tested the democratic world. As Russia began its full-scale invasion this time last year, EU member states were just emerging from COVID-19 pandemic. Our economies were embarking on solid recovery paths. We were optimistic about growth prospects and people returning to the sense of normality. Today, the geopolitical goalposts have shifted like never before. Russia's war forced the European Union, along with the democratic world, to deal with dramatically altered circumstances. The war has disrupted supply chains and led to an economic slowdown. It has also threatened global food and energy security. These shocks have focused minds and priorities. We have acted fast and focused on what is required. We have managed to dovetail short-term emergency action with longer-term policy ambition. During the pandemic, we saw the importance of having a common European response to deal with such a major challenge, to be united, flexible, and imaginative. It prompted us to devise and use new approaches. Next Generation EU, our crisis response program, is a good example. It is unprecedented in its size and structure, widely considered a major political success and a step forward in EU's integration process. Common EU borrowing had also a clear purpose: to create a stronger Europe through common action. Let us recall that when dealing with the pandemic, the EIB played its own creative role by setting up the Pan-European Guarantee Fund to help businesses get through the crisis and recover from the economic impact of COVID-19. Then the EU united to assist Ukraine on massive scale. Ukraine has colossal daily needs and yawning up in its balance of payments, all caused by the act of the aggressor. This led the EU again to find a creative way to provide its largest ever macro-financial assistance. Not only to help cover Ukraine's payment gap, but also to keep its essential services running, prop up the state, and repair damaged infrastructure. Regarding EU support in recent crisis, and as a EU's bank, the EIB has been our closest partner throughout. The bank acted impressively quickly to assemble urgent financial support for Ukraine last year. This would not have been possible without close coordination between the EIB and European Commission. Even before Russia started this war, I saw great examples of EIB support during my regular visits to Ukraine, including in the east of Ukraine. Looking ahead, the EU will not relax its efforts to strengthen Ukraine and support it to emerge victorious. Ukraine has made a clear choice about its European future as an independent country. It must and will win against Russian aggression. This is the single most important task we can take to uphold the democratic rules-based order in Europe. The war's outcome will directly affect our security architecture and shape the global order. Russia must be held accountable for its crimes and pay for the massive damage it has inflicted. We are working with our allies on several paths to make this happen, including ensuring that confiscated Russian assets can benefit Ukraine. We have to stand up to bullies and dictators. It is our moral duty. Ladies and gentlemen, another immediate consequence of this war has been the disruption of our trade supply chains, not to mention Russia's own cynical and deliberate manipulation of energy markets. The EU has traditionally relied on fossil fuel imports from Russia far too much and far too long. It has made the EU focus harder on its course for the future and rethink what kind of partnerships we need to build. Even before the pandemic, we were betting our future competitiveness on the green and digital transitions, moving towards climate neutrality, embracing the digital age. We are fully committed to accelerating both processes. Regarding energy security, we have developed the Repower EU plan and already made a substantial switch to other energy suppliers. Energy prices are falling. Wholesale gas prices are now below pre-war levels. This is helping to bring down inflation as well, since energy price rises has been the driving force behind the economic suffering felt by many European households and companies. For the short term, these are some of the most urgent challenges that Europe is facing. We are also mapping out ways to strengthen our economic resilience in the longer term. This brings me to the Green Deal Industrial Plan, which focuses on net zero industries. It covers the regulatory environment, financing, skills, and trade, but without threatening fair competition. We'll also look in more ways to make the best use of the EU's most valuable asset, the single market, which turns 30 this year. For the short term, increasing competitiveness means optimal deployment of existing instruments such as Recovery and Resilience Facility, Repower EU, the Innovation Fund, and of course InvestEU, our flagship investment program where the EIB is our main implementing partner. For example, on financing, we want to speed up and simplify certain state aid rules. Here, we need to be careful not to distort or fragment the single market. Any changes must be properly focused and time-limited. Subsidies must not come at the cost of well-functioning markets and fair competition. For the medium to long term, we intend to give a structural response to investment needs by proposing European Sovereignty Fund as part of this summer's review of multi-annual financial framework. However, the public purse can only pay for so much. Private and public investment are two sides of the same coin, and we need both. Public investment can catalyze and attract private investment. This is why we should protect and promote investments from national budgets, especially during the crisis, to achieve better results later on. Channeling public funds to the economy will crowd in private investment at the time when it's most needed. Our funding programs can play a decisive role, as I just mentioned. Hundreds of billions of euros are still available and can be used for upgrading our industrial base and infrastructure. There are also more than 220 billion euros in RRF loans that member states have not yet taken up. Still, while there is room to make better use of public funding, it has its limits. That means relying on private sector as well as on well-focused reforms and investments. It is especially important for the green transition, where we have done a great deal to promote sustainable finance. Our instruments include the taxonomy classification system, green bonds, and revised rules on disclosures, among others. At such a challenging time for our economies, private investment is key. We need functioning capital markets more than ever to stimulate the financing around Europe. So there is no time to lose in tackling the long-standing barriers to integrated capital markets. This brings me to the Capital Markets Union. I have been driving this project forward for many years. We need to make much more progress on the Capital Markets Union. Today, it's more relevant than ever. This is why it should be at the top of our political agenda. Rolling out the Capital Markets Union is the most cost-effective step we can make to drive investment. An environment with high uncertainty naturally makes investors nervous. It means that private capital is not moving around as much as it could. And it is another reason why we need deep, liquid, and integrated capital markets. While we have made a lot of progress in recent years, there is still a long way to go with the CMU project to unlock more private investment. Ladies and gentlemen, at a time of heightened international tension, joining forces with friends and partners is more important than ever. So we are not only using our trade agenda to pursue our geopolitical, economic, and sustainability objectives, we are also rethinking the EU's partnerships around the world. It means reinforcing relations with reliable countries and key growth regions. This will help us to secure diversified supplies of key raw materials needed for the two transition and to avoid repeating the same dependence as on oil and gas. Trade is key to our resilient and sustainable economic success. I firmly believe that the EU draws its competitive and political strengths from being a trading superpower. But global dynamics are changing fast. We need to secure the EU's global position by strengthening our competitiveness to support Europe's industrial and economic transition. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying a few words about the bank itself. It is playing a crucial role in carrying out and reinforcing EU priorities, guiding and catalyzing private financing accordingly. As well as being the EU's bank, it has become EU's climate bank to help make the Green Deal a reality. It has also a key part to play in our net zero aspirations, in stimulating innovation and strengthening the EU's competitiveness. So we warmly welcome the EIB's intention to boost its contribution to Repower EU. Lastly, let me return briefly to Ukraine. The role played by the bank in the EU's support is indispensable. Last November, I visited Ukraine and saw an example of EIB investment during the war to support rebuilding of critical infrastructure. The bridge on Kyiv-Zhytomyr road, which was being destroyed during Russian attacks on the first day of the war. The EIB has valuable experience and technical expertise in the country after working with Ukraine since 2007. Both will be important as we enter the next phase, Ukraine's post-war reconstruction, working closely with European Commission, G7, international financial institutions and other partners. I would also strongly encourage the bank to set up a regional hub in Kyiv once conditions allow. This coordination will be vital. EU investments and support will go hand in hand with progress towards Ukraine's EU accession. Our closer economic integration has already started on the basis of deep and comprehensive free trade area. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, the EIB has worked tirelessly to support the EU's policy priorities and turn EU initiatives into reality on the ground. Today, the EU needs you more than ever to support Ukraine, help us to achieve the green and digital transitions, boost competitiveness, support our values across the European Union and beyond. I will close here and wish the European Investment Bank Group many more years of success, as well as a fruitful forum. Thank you.
Thank you indeed to Executive Vice President Dombrovskis for your remarks, well noted.